Hi, this is Martin for Revelation Software, and welcome to another video in my series looking at getting started with OpenInsight. Yes, I've opened up with that same phrase. I thought we were done, and I thought that the last video was the last one, but I was wrong. This last video is going to form an encore or a finale, whichever you want to refer to it as. But as many of you have come back and told me, while we were working with our clinic application earlier in the series, on the patient window, what we did is to drop a table on the consultations tab, and we've done nothing with that table whatsoever. So what I'm going to do in this video is look at getting some data into here of consultations. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at creating a table, creating a window to obviously put our appointment information in, our consultation information in. That's going to involve creating a pop-up so we can look up any consultations. It might include a short report so we can see the consultations for today, so that'd be like a diary, and a number of other bits and pieces that we've learnt over the series, and it's almost going to summarise the whole series of lessons that we've been through. Won't be touching everything, and there might be a couple of additional bits in here, but it's going to be quite a long video. So I would suggest that you make a strong cup of tea or coffee, whichever you prefer, or even something stronger. Find a comfy chair, pen and paper, and sit down and watch this video through from start to finish, taking some notes of anything that you might want to revisit later. And then I think it's going to be a case of using that fast forward and pause button for the bits that you want to see in a little bit more detail. So let's close these windows down and open up the table builder and get on with building our new part of the application. Normally I would have sat down and modelled the database for this. I've got a fairly good idea of what I want because this is a very small part of the application, and got an idea in my head how it's going to fit together. So I'm going to dispense with that, dive straight into the table builder, and we're going to create a new table. So I'll just click new here. We could put it in data volume, but as you know, I usually keep all of my data in a specific directory. I keep it under RevSoft so that I've got everything together. And then under RevSoft I've got my clinic data, so we'll put it in that location. My normal naming conventions, so MP appointments. Now I know I'm going to spell appointments wrong during this tutorial because I'm thinking ahead of myself and thinking of other things. So I'm going to just call this MP_apps, but in the real world I would actually have appointments, so it makes a little bit more sense to anybody looking at my application and my code later down the line. Yeah, apps is a little bit non-descriptive. A description here, so this is going to be clinic appointments. There you go, see, I can't spell, I need an I in there. So clinic appointments, and we'll just go ahead and we'll create that table. Right, so we're now prompted for some column names and things. So previously I had hospital number, but what I normally do for my records, I normally have just plain ID. Now that might be an account number, it might be a hospital number, it might be a social security number, you know, some sort of unique identifier. We'll have that as an integer, and we'll have that as our key, and I'm going to set that as the sequential key, and we'll just have that as 5, and we'll left align it. The next thing that we're going to have will be linked to patient, and again that can just be a straightforward integer, and it's going to be quite small, so we'll put that in as 5 and left again. Now what that's going to do is that's going to basically be our patient number, so that when we're bringing the data into the patient table, we've got some link between the two tables. That will become a little bit more obvious later. We need an appointment date, so I'll just have app date, and we'll have that as a date. Select the defaults, and we'll have app time. Just select those for the moment, might need to come back and look at that in a moment. We'll have the, I could have consultant, but I'll just have this as the doctor. That's just going to be the doctor's name. We might want to have just a summary of the appointment, just a one-liner, and then obviously the notes for the doctor to write some information against them. So I'm just selecting the the normal prompts for those. I'm quite happy with that for the moment. Now we might want to modify that a little bit more later. Using OpenInsight we can come backwards and forwards, so for the moment I think I'm quite happy. So let's just save that away. Now one of the things that I do want to do is I want to have a short name. So I'm going to go back into my MP patient window here, and we'll add a new calculated column, and that's just going to be short name, nice and easy. And obviously we're going to need to have a formula, so we'll just double click to open up the edit formula. Now if you actually just click through there, it starts to put it in there. So we've got @ans for add answer, and what we'll do is we'll just get rid of those two quotes for the moment. We'll open up with a curly bracket, and we'll have 4 names. Let's get that correct. So we get the first name for our patient, semicolon, and then we just want to put a space in between the names, curly bracket, and then we'll have surname, and we'll just close off that curly bracket, and we can test the symbolic if we want to. That's okay, it works. Okay, we'll come back to that. So we'll probably pick up that later on within the forms designer when we are creating bits and pieces. So I think we're pretty much done there. Might be wrong, but we'll save that away, and we'll come out of the table builder and we'll go in and we'll start to create our new form. So if we do file and new form, we do want to use a table this time, and the table that we want to use is the MP apps table that we just created. And we'll just go ahead and we'll select all of the columns within the table, so we'll add those. And most of the control types I'm going to be happy with, but doctor, I want to have that as a combo box lookup, and the notes we're going to want to have that as an edit box so the doctor can put a little bit more information in. So we'll click OK once we're happy, and we get the standard OpenInsight generated form for us. So I'll just select all of those, control and down arrow, just smooth them down a little bit. Now what I will do is save this form away, so we'll call this MP_apps, because I'm going to spell appointment wrong if I keep using that. Appointment. And what we'll do is we'll save that. We'll go into the patient entry window, and what I want to do is to drag through all of the buttons in the little bar at the back, Control C, go back into our appointments and Control V, and then that gives me my toolbar. That works fine, all the functionalities come across for QBF and everything, so long as none of these buttons are actually coded to interact with a specific form. It's going to work fine for us. Not very happy with some of these descriptions, so we're going to change this to appointment number. My typing's not great, and we'll just drag this out to make that a little bit longer. Link to patient, so this is just going to be the patient number, and we'll just change this one to date, this one to time. Let's make that a capital T. Doctor I'm happy with, summary and notes happy with those. Now I would normally change these labels. Remember, I tend to have mine labels as LBL_. For now, because this is just a lesson, I want to get through it fairly quickly, I'll leave those as they are. So they're reasonably well lined up. I don't need that to be quite as wide, and what we'll do is we'll just move that over a little bit more. That one will make the same size, so Control I will make it the same size, and Control Left will left align it. And I think what we'll do is we'll also select all of these, so I'm clicking them with the Shift key and Control and L to left align them. The date, don't need that quite so wide, and the time, we don't need that quite so wide either. And I think what I might actually do is to move these across, and we will Control and T for top to align those. Now to move these more quickly, I'm pressing the Shift and the arrow keys, which jumps across, and then just the arrow keys to move them a small amount. So let's just move this one up slightly, and we'll drag through those and move those up to be in line. I'm not going to bother too much about correctly lining these up and getting everything exactly in line, because I'll be here all day and you really don't want to sit and watch me just moving prompts around on screens. Now one of the things I will do is I'm going to drop on a group box just to group these controls. Drag that down a little bit, and these are going to be, I said I wasn't going to keep typing appointment, I seem to be. So appointment details, and we'll obviously need to move these down a little bit more. Sorry about this, is nothing worse than sitting there watching somebody just moving prompts around on the screen. So that's fine, I've got all of that information in there. Now the patient number, what's going to happen here is the user is going to look up an appointment number. That will then obviously be our record key, but also the ability to pick a patient to assign this appointment to. So I'm going to drop an edit line onto here just for the moment. Control T to align that, and we'll just move that over a little bit more, so that when a patient number is selected, we're going to automatically populate this with the patient's name. So to enable the doctor to look up some information, we'll drop a button onto the system here, and we'll Control T to align, and under tools and size equally, we will size to the minimum height so that it's the same height as that control. I'll just manually move that across, so it's 20 by 21. Move that out slightly so it's 21 by 21, so it's square. We'll have 3 little dots on there to indicate that it's a lookup button, and we're going to need another one for the patient number. So we'll have 2 pop-ups. So I've got a little bit too much space here, so I'm just going to click and drag through everything, shift and just move those up, and once I'm happy we can then test run that window. Actual data tables, I'm happy with that. Now, I haven't got any information in there as yet, so OpenInsight is prompting me for a sequential counter, so number 1 is fine. I obviously can't pick a patient at the moment because I haven't got a lookup, but I'll just put that in as patient number 1. The date is not pulling in correctly, so I need to do something there, and the time. So there's a little bit more that I need to fix up in here. So you know, I need some doctors in here and some summary information and the like. So I'm not actually going to save this, but we can see that the actual form does run. No, I'm not going to save the changes for the moment. Right, one of the other things we're actually going to need to do is we're going to need another button for the date, because we'll use that to look up a little calendar. So I'll just resize this for a moment very quickly. That'll do. And if we double click on the date in here, we can go into the properties and we can set the validation. So we'll have this, I'm in Europe, so I'm going to have this as a European date. And we'll select date European down here as well. And remember, we can actually go into the details for that actual column as well, so we could set the validation at the column level. I might as well, for no real reason. It's you can do it either in the form or either at the dictionary level. Let's just take out D and just leave DE because I'm in Europe, and change the default to date. So well, okay, I'm happy with all of that. And I guess on time we better do the same with the time. So I'll just set the default to the time, and the conversion, set the time that I want to use, and we'll have that one there, I think. So happy with that. Again, we can come back and change things, you know, if we want to at a later date. So we'll OK all of those. Again, I can just test run this just to make sure that things are running fine. Patient number 1. So now I get today's date coming in. I get the current time automatically coming in for me. Again, I haven't got a doctor to pick up, so let's just come out of there. No, it won't save the changes. Now what I could do, remember, is I could have all my doctors in the table. That's probably what you would normally do, and then populate this combo box from the database. But because of time and because I'm being a bit lazy here, then I'm just going to have some different names in here. So I'll have Bill Smith as a doctor. We'll have Angela Johnson. I'm just making up names here. So we'll just have 3, and if I want to, I could have a default selection, so just go Bill Smith, and we'll just OK that. Reasonably happy with those, and then obviously if we test run now, then I can put into that I've got Bill Smith. I can change that if I want to, leave it as Bill. Summary, this is my first appointment. Actually, just have this as headache. And again, if you want to do summary, you could have a drop down with lots of different lists. So suffering from headache, prescribed painkiller. Now again, you could probably take this further, because you could have prescribed drugs in here, lots and lots of different information, but I'm just keeping this very short and simple for the moment. So let's just save that away, and we can just return that back if we want to. So quite happy with that. Let's come out of there. Next we're going to have a look at these buttons and configuring those. We can't do anything with the appointment number yet because we need to create a pop-up, but let's go ahead and shift and double click on the patient number to bring up the scripts for that. We'll just get rid of the return 0 because I'm going to cheat. I've got some code that I've already created, and in here what we're going to do is simply call the pop-up. The user will then select something, and we're going to return it back to the ID prompt. Actually, in this instance it's not going to be the ID prompt. Let's just come out of there. Yes, I'll save that because it's going to be this prompt here, which is linked to patient. So we'll Control C. Let's just go back into the code, and we'll just paste that into there. So we're going to get the key and pass it back into there. And the pop-up that we're going to run is MP pop-up hospital number, which is one that we've used before. So yes, we'll update those. The other button that we're going to pay some attention to now is this one, which is going to run the calendar in OpenInsight, and then pass that back to the date control, which should be app date. So we're going to set the property at the window app date, set the focus to that, and call in the options. Right, this will be interesting to see whether I can do this first time. We're going to have a pop-up called, which will return a value to our patient number, and then depending on that patient number we're going to display the patient's name in this edit line here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to work with my naming convention, so I'm going to change this to EDL_, and then we'll go into the quick event for the button, and we will execute a pop-up. We'll go and find that pop-up, which is our hospital number that we created earlier, and I'm happy with the execute and the parameters, but what we will do is we'll return the value into that edit line. So EDL link to patient, and we'll set the property to defprop. And then because I like to test everything as I go along, I don't like to do too many things because you find that you'll change several things and you can't work out what you broke, but running the pop-up sends the patient number into there, so that's fine. I'm happy with that. I won't save that. Right, the next thing that we need to do is we need a calculated column to bring the label into here. So what we'll do is we'll go away and we will run the table builder. Actually, before we do that, what I'll do is I'll shut down the forms designer so we don't get a lock, and we need to open up the MP apps table, and we need to add in a calculated column. Now I'm just going to call this name. Happy with varchar, but I do need to put a special formula in here. Now the formula I put in here is going to be an xlate, and I can use the formula wizard to help me to do that. So this is the xlate wizard. I need to select the table, and this is going to be the table from which we want to view the data. So in this instance it's going to be MP patient. Next we need to choose a column in this table that's the key. So this is going to be our link to patient. And we choose the column from the target database that we want to see. So this is going to be short name. And next, and we'll just accept the default there, return a null if no record is found. So once that's in there, we can test the symbolic. Of course it works because it's been created by the system. We can OK, and we'll come back out of the table and go back into the forms designer and go back into our appointments form. Next we'll go into the edit line and we will set the database association, and obviously what we're going to do is to associate that with the name. So we'll OK that. But what I do need to do is I need to then go into the patient number here, and we need to add a quick event so that when this prompt is changed, we need to send a message to the controller window. Let's just go out there and find edit line link to patient. Sorry, it's not that one, I don't think. Let's just close out of there for a second. Let's just change this to EDL underscore patient name, and just go back into here, into the events. So on the changed event, controller window, we'll go down, we'll find that edit line. So this is the patient name, and the message that we want to send to that is to calculate it, and we'll just OK that, and let's see what's happened. So we'll pick a patient, being me. Okay, we've got an error loading dictionary item 4 names. So let's just have a look at that and see what we've done wrong. Right, I've got a feeling that the issue might be within the table itself. So let's just go back to the table builder, and we want to go and have a look at the patient one. And if we go into the short name, okay, I can't spell. We need an E in there, so 4 names. I think that that will then work for us. Let's just go back into the forms designer, into the apps window, and we'll test run that. And this time if we click Martin, we actually get my name appear in there. So I apologise for that typo, but you can see how if you build in a system and you understand how things all fit together, then it's not difficult to quickly jump into another area and to resolve the issue. Right, so what we'll do is we're not going to save that at the moment. Actually I might as well, let's put another one in just to see what happens. Date time, and this time I've got yeah, I suffer with hay fever in the summer, so now somebody's going to turn around and say I can't spell, so I don't know whether that's hyphenated or whatever. Should know, suffered with hay fever all my life, but there we go. Prescribed an antihistamine, my spelling doesn't matter, so we'll just OK that and come out of there for now. Right, we'll go with something relatively easy this time. We are now going to modify this button so that it calls a month calendar and sends the date into the date prompt, so that users have got a calendar pick list. We'll go into the event handler for that particular button. Now I've already got some code, so I'll just copy that in, getting rid of the other return 0. And what we'll do is we'll set the property of the app date control. We're going to set focus and then call the options. So I do actually need to make sure that I name the control correctly, so I'll just copy that. Yes, we'll update the event handler, and we'll go into this control and just make sure that the control is named correctly. Remember, I'm just putting the EDL underscore in there. And then on this particular control, what I want to do is go into the event handler again, and this one's going to be fairly straightforward. I'm going to declare a function, and it's going to be set underscore property, and the property that we're going to set is going to be call pop-up underscore month. Now there is a pop-up underscore year, I believe, that will bring all of the year's calendars together, all 12 months together in one, but we don't want that. We just want the current month. I think that will be fine. I'm setting this on the options event. You might find when you go into here, first of all, it's set as calculate. Just make sure that you have got options set so it's on the right one, and then what we'll do is we'll just compile that and save it, and then we can do our usual test run just to make sure that that change has worked and it's all working as we expect it to. So we get our calendar. The red box is today, but this appointment is going to be for the 9th, so just select that and it returns that date into the date field. So I'm more than happy with that right now. Okay, so come out of here. No, I don't want to save the changes. And next we'll have a look at the appointment number. Now there isn't a pop-up for us to call, so we'll come out of the Forms Designer and we'll go into the User Interface Workspace, and we will select New from the File menu, and we'll have a new pop-up using the wizard. Keep it nice and easy. So next, the table that we're working with is the MP apps, and next we're prompted for the columns that we want to display. So I think in here we'll have ID, we'll have the date, we might as well have the time as well. Because this isn't doctor specific, we'll put it in as doctor. Normally you'd probably filter this in some way, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. And we'll have the name. We'll see what we get. The conversion for the date and time I need to be DE, and for the app time it needs to be month. The rest I'm happy with, but I will change these columns. So I'll have ID, we'll change the next one down to simply date, time, and I'm just arrowing down through these, and arrow down, and we'll have, rather than name, we'll have patient name. I think that's a little bit more friendly. So we click next. So the name for the pop-up, MP underscore pop-up, keeping my naming convention, and we'll just call this apps. Keep it nice and easy. So we'll go next, finish. Now we could go into here and change things like, you know, make it sortable, searchable, buttons on top buttons, put in green bars, etc, etc, and test run. So you can play around until you get it looking how you like it. We've just got 2 appointments in there at the moment, so we'll OK that. And I think that one of the things I will change is the title to appointments. Okay, so we'll just save that away, and we'll close out of there, and we'll go back into the Forms Designer and pick up the appointments form. Okay, and while we're in here, what I want to do is just change this name to EDL underscore ID, purely because I usually have EDL underscore ID for all of my main key fields. And then we want to go into the button and into the scripts, and we'll just Control V to paste in this code that I've got previously. Now all this code is doing is it's going to call our pop-up, so I need to change this MP underscore pop-up underscore apps, and we're going to get the key and then send it to the EDL underscore ID, and then we're going to read the record. So let's check the syntax, close the window, yep, we'll update them, and let's just test run that and see what we get. So now I can get my 2 different records. I can select record number 1, OK, and then that returns record number 1. So this window seems to be running perfectly now. We've got all of the information that we want. We've got our appointment number linking to a patient, and we're producing that name. We've got our date with the date picker, the time. We can pick a doctor from a pick list, and we've got a summary and notes. So let's just close out of that window. Right, now's where things start getting really interesting. What we're going to do is we're going to come out of the Forms Designer and we go into the Table Builder, because what we're going to do is make the appointment show on the table in the patient entry window. So the first thing we need to do is go into the patient table, and what we need to do is to create a few more items in here. Now I don't have a way of linking the appointment to this particular user, so what I'm going to do is simply have a new one in here called app ID. So that's the appointment ID number. We'll have that as an integer, and everything else in there is absolutely fine. And we need some calculated columns, because what we want to do is pull the data from the appointments table into this one to display on the form. So we'll have an app date. I'll worry about the formulas in a moment. We want to have the appointment time, the doctor, and the appointment summary. Okay, so that will do for now. I'm going to just quickly write those down, and then we need to go in and set the formulas. Now these are all going to be xlate, so the appointment type, the appointment date, we'll use a formula wizard, xlate. So the table from which we wish to view the data is going to be the appointments, and the column to use as a key is going to be the app ID, and the column is going to be the appointment date. Next and X and finish, and we'll OK, and then we'll go ahead and we'll do the same for the doctor. Formula wizard, xlate, next. We want the apps table. The column is in this one, which is the key, is the app ID. We want the doctor, and we're done. So OK that one. We also need it for the summary. And finally for the time. Okay, so I think we're done in the table builder, so we'll just OK out of there. We'll find out whether all of that's correct later on, and then we need to go into the forms designer and run up our patient entry window. Now hopefully you've got the slide bar open in the forms designer on your particular application. If you haven't, just click anywhere on the form, open up the properties, and make sure that you've got the vertical scroll bar ticked. And that way then you can just come down to the table that we have been working on. Now I'm actually going to move this up a little bit, because what I also want to do is to drop on an edit box, and we'll just make that the same width, so Control A, and we'll just move that up slightly, a bit bigger. Now I'll worry about naming that in a moment, but what we're going to do is, as the user moves around in here, we're actually going to display the detail in here. Let's see if we can be that clever. Right, so the next thing that I need to do in the table is to open up the table, make sure that we've got the first column selected, and we'll just call this app ID, so the appointment ID, and we need to set the database association so that it is app ID. The next one, we'll set that as the date, and we'll make sure that the database association is set to the appointment date, and the next one is going to be the time. Let's set that one as well. And this one is going to be the summary. We'll set that one also, so appointment summary. We'll make that one auto resize so it fills the grid, and we don't need this last one, so we can just delete that one out. And for the date, we'll go into the validation and we'll set that as the validation pattern of DE. Not sure that we need both of these, but I'm just going to set them both anyway just to be sure. And on the time, I believe that we're probably going to need to set the time as well. So that one there, and down here we'll go with our 12-hour clock again like we did before. I'm just going to rename this to TBL underscore apps just to keep the naming convention correct. So we'll OK that, and we'll change this to EVX underscore notes. Okay, the app ID is probably going to be a little bit big. We don't really need it that wide, so we'll change that to 40. Okay, now it doesn't quite fit, so the name doesn't. We'll just call this ID because we know that it's going to be the appointments, because we've got consultations on there. I guess I really ought to change this to appointments as well, but I'll leave it as it is for the moment. Right, okay, so next thing that we need to do, we need some code now to make this all work. So we'll double click on the table and we'll go into the events, and I want the user to be able to click on the headings and to be able to sort the data. Now again, I've got code from previous applications that I've written. This was made available to me. So what we're going to do in here is the table that we're working with. So I think this is table apps. Let's just change that. In fact, as always, I'm just going to go back and double check and make sure that it is. So we'll just OK out of those. So it's TBL underscore apps. That's fine. Go back into the events. Grab the click event and the script. So TBL underscore apps. That's fine. We're going to check where they clicked. We're then going to trim the table, which is fine because the table is defined up here. That's all fine. We're going to sort the information. I'm just making sure in here that I haven't got anything table specific that I might need to change. And I think we're actually all okay. This is where it's going to display the data. So we'll just test compile that, and that's fine. When the user double clicks on the table, so that event there, I want to enable them to then open up the form that we've been working with, the appointments form, and view that particular record. So we're going to enable the double click. That's all okay. Get the row and the column. Some of the descriptions in here are not correct, so I've put this over from my contact manager. So we're actually going to open up the MP apps window, if that was correct. And in my old application it's quite slow to load, so I've got a cursor that's coming up, so that's fine. We'll just leave that as it is. And so if column's 1, then we need the table apps, get the column, get the row. Let's just change that comms as well to apps. Just checking through, so the current position, current row, current column, so that's all okay. Send a message, that's all okay. And the window name that we're going to call isn't the communication entry, I think it's MP apps that we called it. And we're going to call that as a dialog box, passing in the window name and the window and the ID. And if there's no ID in the column 1, then we're just going to call the window as it is without passing anything in. So MP apps. Right, okay, so let's just, okay, I've got a problem with the illegal statement DBL click. Okay, that's because I copied that in, so let's just remove that and test run again. So now the syntax is okay on that for the double click. And then the last change that I want to make, and I am making 3 in a hit here, so hopefully they'll work, is when the user moves between the rows, what I want to do is to update the edit box that we put onto the window as well. So in here we're going to refresh the notes panel. So the row data, we're going to get from our apps table the data from whichever row we've clicked on, and then we're going to do an Xlate here to the appointments to get the details, and then we're going to pass that into the notes. So there's no database association on that control. We're just going to pass that raw data in. It won't be able to modify it or anything. Yes, we'll update the handlers. We'll OK. And let's go for a test run and find out what doesn't work, what we need to fix up. Now I know I've got some appointments on my record being number 1. We'll go straight to consultations, and immediately we get something that doesn't work. I think what I haven't done, if I just come out of here and just save this on the way, what I need to do is I need to set up an index between the two tables. So if I go into indexes, add, and in this instance I want a relational index. And what I need to do is to select the index from, which is going to be my MP apps, and the column name to link it to is going to be, I think it's link to patient, and the link to is going to be the patient, and the column name is going to be the app ID. So we'll add that. Yes, we'll create it. It's created successfully, and close. Come back out of there. We'll go back into the Forms Designer, into our patient entry window, and we'll test run. Bring in my record, go into consultations, and now we actually get the information coming across into this record. So these are the 2 appointments. So if I just come out of here and we'll go into the appointments, we'll test run, OK that. So appointment number 3 is going to be for patient number 2, which is Joanna. Today's date, time, she's going to see Angela. Summary is going to be flu, and she was prescribed paracetamol and a holiday because she's been working hard. So let's just save that away, come out of there. We'll go back into the actually before we do that, stay in the patient entry window, and what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to go into menu and design, so we can do this from the one location. Now I'll add this after the reports, and what we're going to do is we're going to just have a headline of window, and then this will be add an appointment. So we'll just happy with that, and then the quick events for that particular menu item is going to be start a window, and the window that will start is going to be the MP apps, and we won't pass any parameters. I mean, what I could be doing is passing in parameters so that it would run up appropriately, but what we'll do is we'll just test run that. So number 1, okay, but now what I can do is I can go into add an appointment, and then that will run up the appointment, so I can add in another appointment. So we'll go another one for me. We'll see Bill, and this is my it's just going to be a follow-up to hay fever, and I've still got it, so I'll just save that away and come out of there. And obviously for the moment it's not updated, so what I would need to do is to put some code in there to refresh that. But Joanna's has now got flu, and if I go into number 1, then you can see that I've now got, you know, my 3 in here. So I've got all of the information that I want, and as I click around the table, then I'm getting the notes in the bottom here. So okay, happy with all of that so far. I think the next thing that we're going to do is come out of the Forms Designer, and we'll start looking at putting a report together. Actually, before we go and run a report, there is actually an issue, because if we launch the application, in other words we give it to our users for UAT, what they're supposed to be able to do is to double click on one of these rows. So if I double click on row number 1 with the ID 6, then it should come up with record number 6 and show that, rather than just coming up with the next ID. In addition, the window's a bit off the video there, rather in the middle of the screen. So let's just come out of there, and before we go in and reproduce our report, we'll fix that up. Now the issue is on our apps window, the one that we've been working with today, and we want to go into the script for the create event, and we'll just change the event to the create. This is going to run when the window's created. Now I've already got some code that I've brought in from another location. I'll go through this very quickly. We are declaring a couple of subroutines to set property and send event, and then if this window is launched as a dialog box from another window, we're going to get the ID and pass it into the EDL ID and then read the window. We're also going to set a number of the prompts, well, pretty much all of the data entry prompts, as read only, because obviously this is supposed to be a lookup window. In addition, the window is showing up off the screen, so I want to have that a little bit more centralized. Now I'm not doing the video exactly in the center of my screen, but this will make it a little bit better than it was. I don't actually need to reset the cursor or anything like that, so we'll delete that bit of code, but I will want to make it invisible so that it doesn't come up and flick into place. What we're going to do is create the window invisible and then make it visible, so we're just going to set that property. So we'll check our code, that's okay. Yes, we'll update, and if we then come out of this window, so do you want to save the changes? Yes. Now I haven't changed it to invisible at the moment, because I just want to show you the way that this flicking is going to work. So we go into the patient records, bring up my account, consultations, ID number 6, and you'll watch that it comes up and flicks. But now we are actually showing appointment number 6. Appointment number 5, so the summary details are wrong in here, but I can't actually change this because it's read only. So let's just go back and very quickly, before I do the report, go into that window, we go to the properties of the window, and we will make it invisible. In other words, we uncheck the visible box, and this time when we test run it, so when we run it properly, you'll find that it will now just appear nicely in the middle of the screen for us. Okay, so let's come out of there, and what we'll do now is we will go into the report builder, and we'll go ahead and build ourselves a report. So we'll go File and New Report with Wizard. Next, let's just bring this down slightly, that's better. So we go next to get into one of the main screens, and the table that we're going to be working with is going to be the MP Apps window. So next, and the information that we want to bring in will have the ID, just because I normally bring in IDs. We'll have the app date, the app time, we'll have the doctor, we're obviously going to need the name of the patient, and we'll just have the summary. So let's go next. We can work this out a little bit later on. Group by columns, well, we could group this by doctor if we wanted to, and we'll carry on. So sort by, and I think we'll sort them by the appointment time, and we need to enter a description. So this is going to be our appointment diary. Next, and the report name that we want to save this as, so MP underscore reports underscore, I'll just call this diary for ease. So next, finish. Now we will tidy up a few little bits and pieces. We'll go into the select, and we'll set the default font as I did in the previous lesson. We'll set that to 8, and we'll set our header font to Arial rounded. We'll make that bold and 14, and we will set the footer font, and we'll take that down to 8, and finally the column header font, we'll leave that as 10, but we'll make that bold and we'll underline it. Okay, so our header is going to be appointment diary. And the footer is going to be page, and then we'll put the page number in. And we'll have that printed on, and the date, and put the time in there as well. And let's just test run that and see what we get. Okay, so we get our report. It's in time order, but we've got the split is a bit wrong with Bill Smith and Angela Johnson. We might want to tidy that up slightly. In addition, I might just really want to see the appointments for today, whereas I've got all of the days in here at the moment. So let's just come out and fix up those two things. So we go into sort display order, and I'm going to remove the appointment time, but I'm going to sort on doctor. And we'll go into the selection criteria, we'll modify that, and we're going to pick up the column that we want. It's going to be the appointment date, which is going to be equal to today. Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be today, because the receptionist or the doctors might want to see what appointments we've got tomorrow or for the day after. So what we'll put a question mark and quote, and then we'll just enter a just put a date to search for or to report on or whatever. Close the quote and close the question mark, and then we insert that, and what that's going to do is it's going to prompt us for a date. So we'll click OK and OK, and let's test run that and see what we get as a result for our reports. Now, I have put some additional data in while we've been away between recording this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look for tomorrow, and we'll produce that report. And you'll see now that we just get the one entry for Bill Smith for me, which is correct. But if I run that a second time, and this time I'll put in today as the date, so I'll get a little bit more data coming back. Now you can see all of the appointments for today, and we've got a break on the doctors, so we've put all the Bill Smith together and all the Angela Johnsons together. So the receptionist can now see when people are coming in and what time and roughly what the issue is about. So we could sit and tidy up that report a little bit more, but I'm quite happy with that. We've got our footer information at the bottom as well. So I'm quite happy with that report. So we'll come out of there, and we'll go ahead and we'll save the report changes. Come out of the report builder, because now obviously what we need to do is to hook that up to our report library. So we'll go into the MP reports. Now I am going to change the description, because the first button was going to be our patient listing. So I'll just change that description to patient listing, and then report number 2 is going to be our appointment diary. Okay, might need to make these a little bit longer, and I might want to have that as a capital D. So we'll select both of the buttons, Control A to make them both the same width, and then we'll go ahead and we'll hook this button up to our report using a quick event. So find the report, RB layout, so we'll grab the reports diary is the one that we want, and we obviously want to execute that, so OK that, and then we can test run that report, that form. It's the appointment diary, enter into date being today, and that should produce our report for us. Okay, there we go. And then we just need to hook up our report to the button. So on the click event, we'll locate our report, same way as we did yesterday. So this is the report diary that we want, and we're going to execute it. So we'll OK that, and then let's just test run that, make sure that works, I guess. So the appointment diary, put in today's date, and then we get our report for today, which is fine. and I guess that we also need to go into the patient entry window under our reports. So we're going to menu and design. We'll come down to where our reports are. We'll add another one in there, which was going to be the appointment diary, and just come out of there. Yep. And we'll go into the quick events and we'll locate that node in the menu, that one there, and we will simply pick our report, so report diary, and we're going to execute that. Okay, that, and if we test run that window and we go into the reports and the appointment diary, then again we can put a date in and get our report. There we go. So at this point we are pretty much done as a developer. What we can now do is to provide this application to our end user to run through some UAT testing. Now this morning when we started this particular lesson, or review of the lessons that we've been covering over this series, we effectively had the scenario where our developer was sitting down, a user walked through the door and said, great little application, but what I really need to do is capture the appointment information, make that available via the patient window as well to see the appointment history for that patient, and also want to be able to produce a report to show the appointments that we've got for today or any other day. The beautiful thing about OpenInsight is you haven't got to sit down and spend days remodeling the application, remodeling the database underneath or anything. You can literally take the requirements of the user, tell them to go away, make a cup of tea or coffee, come back in 10 or 15 minutes time. Okay, I'm not quite sure how long it's taken me to do this because I've been doing this video around other jobs that I needed to get out of the way today and phone calls and the like. But if you look at the length of this video, then that will give you some idea of how quickly this can be put together. But that user could come back and then we could sit down, we can launch the application and we can say, right, the patient entry records, you've now got the ability to review all of the consultations against a user. So those are for user number 1, those are for user number 2, and you can double click and you can review that particular appointment details. So the doctor could be sitting down, or alternatively if you were to click on it, then you would see the history below in this particular window without going any further. And also we've given you access to add a new appointment and also to run the appointment diary report. So at this point the user could sit down and say, yep, great, love this, I'll go away and use it, or they could say, no, I prefer this window to be a bit bigger and this one to be a bit smaller, where you can just play around with those to your heart's content. So I'm hoping that this video has really summarized the whole series, shown you how easy OpenInsight is to use. This is obviously a fairly basic level of using the product. We've not gone into using some of the advanced features like commuter modules, but hopefully it will get you started, give you an idea. Go along on the proper training courses that Revelation run, because they'll be able to take you up to the next step and then some. But I hope that this gives you an idea of what OpenInsight's about and how quickly you can build things using this fully integrated wonderful bit of kit. I look forward to seeing you in the next video series, which is going to be on O4W, and that's going to be in a few weeks time. Thanks so much for your time today. Bye bye.